Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to review cells. So the first thing you need to be able to do is compare prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So what we mean by compare and contrast, obviously, is you have to know how they're different, but you also have to know how they're the same, like what things they have in common. Okay, so if you could fill out your paper as we do this, or look at the one that is already filled out for you. Okay, prokaryotic means before a nucleus. So the most important thing I need you to remember is that this one has no nucleus. So that means this one does have a nucleus. Eukaryo means good nucleus, so that means they have to have one. Okay, so then by contrast, this one should be simple and this one should be complicated. Okay, prokaryotic cells were the first ones to evolve, so they had to be very simple. There's no nucleus in them, okay? And then other things that are different, they do still have DNA, even though they do not have a nucleus. But remember, prokaryotic DNA is in the form of a circle, whereas ours is in the form of a chromosome, okay? And all cells have to have a cell membrane because that's how they're held together. And all cells have to have ribosomes because that's how they make proteins. You can't have a cell without some proteins. Okay, now mitochondria are only in eukaryotic ones because they're complicated. And let's do the pictures here. Simple, complex. Okay, and I've saved this one for last, the cell wall, because this one's a little confusing. Okay. All bacterial cells or prokaryotic cells have to have a cell wall, but there are a few eukaryotic ones that also have one, like fungi cells and plant cells, okay? But it is a prerequisite to be a prokaryotic cell. Like prokaryotic cells do not exist without a cell wall. So I'm going to kind of put this one in between here, just a little bit like that. Okay, but prokaryotic cells have to have one. So this is bacteria. This is everything else. So we have eukaryotic cells, plants, fungi, protists. The only thing that is prokaryotic is bacteria. They're synonymous with that, and you can do the same thing. You can say that prokaryotic cells are bacteria and nothing else because that's the way it is. Okay, so remember how they're different, but also I need you to remember how they're similar. All right? Okay, so once you have a eukaryotic cell, we're going to focus on those now. These are the 7 organelles that you have to know. Okay, and I've tried to put the simplest definition possible inside the function, and then whether they're in plants, animals, or both, and I've left the diagram column empty because we're going to recognize those on the next screen. Okay, so remember, we're just focusing on eukaryotic cells now. So they obviously have a nucleus which controls everything that goes on, right? It's in both kind of cells. The cell membrane is responsible for letting things in and out. Both of them have that. You might also see it say homeostasis here because that's how, I mean, if it lets things in and out, then it controls water balance, food balance, everything. Okay? The cell wall is for protection. And it's only in plant cells, okay? Animal cells do not have a cell wall, and that's one of the main differences between plant and animal cells, and we'll see that 2 screens later, okay? Vacuoles are for storage, mostly water, but they can store food or waste sometimes, and they are in both, but there is a difference. In plant cells, there's one large vacuole, and in animal cells, there's probably several small ones, and I'll show you that in a upcoming screen also. Chloroplasts are also only in plants, and they make sugar. They're the ones responsible for photosynthesis. The ribosomes, if you remember, are in both, and they make proteins. And then mitochondria is the site of respiration. This is where we burn sugar for energy, and those are in both plant and animal cells. Okay, so guys, this picture came off of a released EOC, so this is probably what your cells would look like on the exam. They're pretty simple. They're not going to be super complicated. Like if you were to Google a plant cell, they can look pretty complicated. And these are the 7 cell parts that you're responsible for, okay? The ones that only attach on this side only belong to the plant. So that would be the chloroplast, which you can always spot that because it looks like it has stacks of coins or stacks of pancakes in the middle. I wish it were a colored test because then they would be green, but it's not, unfortunately. And then the other one is the cell wall that only points to the plant cell side. So the plant cell will always look like it has 2 layers here. So almost like I am today. I'm wearing a t-shirt and then I have a sweatshirt over that. So it's a double layer. The outer one is the wall. The inner one is the membrane. Okay, then other than that, they share these others. The membrane is on the outside except when there's a wall. Okay, the nucleus is generally the largest organelle inside of there. And that's the nucleolus, which you don't have to know. The chromosomes can also be inside here. Okay, the ribosome are the dots. They kind of make the cell look like they have chicken pox. Here's the vacuole. See how it's smaller in animal cells, but much larger in plant cells. And y'all, that's not because the plant needs more water than an animal. It's just that a plant has to rely on Mother Nature or us to water them. So they have to store water as much as they can, whereas an animal can get water pretty much whenever it needs to, right? Unless it's caged up or something. The mitochondria is going to look like a bean, except it's going to look like it has a maze in the middle. A lot of students mix up the mitochondria and the chloroplast, but there's 2 ways to remember it. Obviously, what it looks like on the inside, but then remember, only plant cells have chloroplast, so you won't find these in both. Okay, so animal cell, plant cell. All right, and then how plant cells and animal cells compare. This is a skill you have to know for the EOC as well. So first, let's look at them that are different. Okay, and let's do what plant cells have that animal cells do not. So remember, it definitely is that cell wall. Okay, it is chloroplasts, and then of course that large vacuole, whereas animal cells have small vacuoles. Okay, and then the rest of these they have in common. Okay, so make sure you know the differences and the similarities, just like we did with prokaryotic and eukaryotic a few minutes ago. Okay? Okay, so guys, then I want to mention something called differentiation. This is when a specific gene of DNA is activated to create a variety of cells. Okay, so when we are first created, sperm and egg first unite, we're just one cell, and then we start dividing into a bunch of cells. Okay? Those cells don't have a job yet. They're called stem cells. Basically, they're just human cells. They haven't been told, hey, you're going to become a brain, you're going to become a stomach, you're going to become skin, you're going to become muscle, etc., etc. Okay? So how a cell is activated is, you know that every cell in a person's body has the exact same DNA in it, right? Because like at a crime scene, I could find a guilty person from his or her blood, from his or her skin, from sperm, etc. Okay? It has the same DNA in it. But why do all the cells look so different? Well, the reason is even though they all have the exact same DNA, certain parts of the DNA are turned on and the rest of it is left off, so it can turn into a specific type of cell. Okay, and a very simple analogy to that is like if you're going to school to become a teacher or you're going to school to become a lawyer, there are certain classes you all have to take that are in common. But once I get further into a teaching degree or further into a law degree, I'm going to have specific classes that are just for that. Okay, so try to use that analogy for you. So cells that are made for movement, muscle. Reproduction, you know, are sperm and egg. Connection, skin, bone, tendon. Communication is unique for nerve cells. And then transport, an example of that is a red blood cell. Okay? All right, and the last thing I want to go over today is the cell cycle. So this is what I learned as mitosis. So the function of the cell cycle is to make cells more like the one that you need to copy, okay? So this is for asexual reproduction, could be for growth, or it could be if I've damaged something, like I need more cells, okay? The end result are two identical daughter cells. You get the same number of chromosomes, none of them are different from one another, and this happens in every cell of your body, bone, muscles, skin, brain, etc., except sperm and egg. You guys know that sperm and egg, every sperm in a guy's body and every egg in a female's body are unique, okay? Not with mitosis, not with the cell cycle. So you also have to know the parts of the cell cycle. So there are three main things, I'd say: interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. And then those phases are basically divided into other parts. So I do know from past experience that you have to know this exact order here. So G1, S, G2. You have to put that in order or choose the correct order. The purpose of interphase is basically to copy your DNA and check it to make sure there's no mistakes, okay? S is where the DNA is actually copied. It stands for synthesis. And then in G2, we're going to check that. So if everything checks out and there's no mistakes in the DNA, it moves into mitosis. You do not have to know these names here. That's why I just put the first initial. But you do have to know the purpose of mitosis. And the purpose of that is to create two nuclei. So at the end of mitosis, you still have one cell, but it's got two nuclei in it. Okay, and a cell cannot function like that for long because it doesn't know which nucleus to take instructions from. So the final step of the cell cycle is cytokinesis, which is when the cells actually split in half and then you have two cells that are identical to one another. Okay, so for cell cycle, two cells at the end that are genetically identical, all right, every cell in your body except sperm and egg, G1, S, G2, then mitosis, then cytokinesis. Okay? All right. So guys, I'm going to stop here for this video, okay? And I'm going to give you guys some stuff to practice with, so just look out for that and refer back to this video as often as you need to, okay? Cells are an important part of the EOC, so make sure you understand those 7 parts and the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, okay? Email me if you have any questions. Take care.